Some ships are remembered for speed, some for tragedy, and some for the quiet, stubborn lives they lived. The Star of Lapland belonged to the third kind. She was born in January 1902 at the yard of Arthur Sewall Co. in Bath, Maine, one of the great American builders of steel sailing ships. Launched as Atlas, she measured 332 feet in length, 45 feet in beam, and nearly 26 feet in depth. A steel four-masted barque of 3,381 gross tons, she was built strong rather than graceful. Contemporary observers wrote that her side profile suggested power more than beauty. She was constructed for Standard Oil Company at a time when petroleum was conquering the world, not yet through pipelines and tankers, but in wooden cases packed deep into the holds of sailing ships. Atlas and her two sisters, Astral and Acme, were floating warehouses. Each could carry up to 133,000 cases of kerosene bound for Shanghai, Yokohama, or Hong Kong. They were not clippers. They were industrial machines under sail. Atlas left the yard on the 16th of February 1902, towed by the tug Triton toward New York. The towing contract was fixed at $750, a bargain that turned sour when heavy seas and strong winds made the job last 8 exhausting days. That was an omen. The Standard Oil sailing ships were notorious for crew trouble. Sailors often complained the ships were top-heavy or poorly rigged. Discipline was sometimes enforced by reading the Seaman's Code aloud from a government cutter. These were not romantic tea clippers with willing crews chasing records. They were working ships, and the men knew it. Atlas sailed the long routes: New York to Japan, Hong Kong to Baltimore, Shanghai to San Francisco. Under Captain A.F. McKay, known as a driver, she could be impressive. McKay pushed his ships hard, often sailing far south into the roaring 40s, between 46 degrees and 48 degrees south latitude, where stronger westerlies could drive a loaded ship at 250 to 300 nautical miles per day. One passage from Hong Kong to Baltimore reportedly took just 93 days, remarkable for a heavily built barque. But such performances were the exception. Standard Oil's own calculations suggested voyages to Japan averaged over 160 days if departing in the wrong monsoon season, around 135 days if timing favored the southwest monsoon. The ships needed wind. In light airs, they struggled. They carried only about 30 men, small crews for such giants. There were no electric winches. Steam from a donkey boiler powered cargo gear and the anchor windlass. Even sail handling could be steam-assisted. It was an uneasy blend of 19th century sail and 20th century industry. By 1910, steam had clearly won the petroleum trade. Atlas was sold to the Alaska Packers Association of San Francisco. Renamed Star of Lapland, she entered an entirely different world. No longer crossing oceans with kerosene, she now sailed north each summer to Alaska and the Bering Sea. There, she served as an accommodation and processing ship for the salmon fleets. Instead of case oil, her decks smelled of salt, fish, and cold northern fog. Every year she went north. Every winter she returned south. Reliable, uncomplaining, workmanlike. For nearly 2 decades, Star of Lapland made seasonal voyages to Alaska until 1927, when she was laid up in Alameda. The Alaska Packers fleet was full of former deep-sea sailing ships. Proud vessels reduced to stationary work platforms. It was a common fate. Sail was dying, but hulls were still valuable. Her sister ships followed similar paths. Astral became Star of Zealand, Acme became Star of Poland, and was lost in a typhoon off Japan in 1918. Star of Lapland survived. In 1934, she was sold to Japan for breaking. In October 1935, she made her last passage, a one-way voyage across the Pacific to Osaka. There in 1936, the great steel barque was dismantled. No dramatic wreck, no famous battle with Cape Horn, no heroic rescue, just steel plates cut apart in a shipbreaking yard. The Star of Lapland represents something important in maritime history. She was not a clipper of the Golden Age, nor was she a modern tanker. She belonged to that narrow, fascinating moment when industrial capitalism still trusted wind power, when corporations like Standard Oil built massive sailing ships because they were still economical. She was strong, practical, unspectacular. And in that quiet endurance, there is something deeply human.